After wandering in the darkness for weeks and weeks, it appears that the Atlanta Braves offense may just be emerging from the wilderness with some answers at the plate and a chance to play perhaps their best baseball of the season moving forward, maybe even as soon as this weekend, because they've certainly got a showdown on their hands, and they will be put to the test by the Bronx Bombers up in New York as they square off with the Yankees to open up a 7 game road trip that'll stop in 3 different cities. We're going to talk all about that, some of the big things that have been going on at the plate and on the mound for the Braves in the past week, and we'll get to all of it in just a moment. As always, I'm Grant McCauley. He's Chris Willis. This is BPTV. Before we get started, hit that thumbs up button right there below the video. Leave us a like on this episode. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on those notifications so you get an alert every time we drop a new episode of BPTV. Chris, as forgettable as that road trip was that we were talking about this time a week ago, the Braves made up for it with a 5-1 homestand and really flexing their collective muscle at the plate. We saw several key hitters show some very important signs that they might just be heating up.
Yeah, it was a great homestand and a perfectly timed one as well because morale was low around these parts, it seemed like. But, back to 10 games over 500, as you said, the way they did it, I think, was impressive. They showed a lot of good pitching that we've seen all year, but the bats started to wake up. Austin Riley, Shawn Murphy, Ozzie Albies, a lot of people, a lot of guys contributed. And that's really good to see because, we're getting to that point of the season now where you'd really like to see them build some momentum.
Yeah, and you just had to believe that the talent was there. And if, I know I sound like a broken record. I feel like a broken record for that matter, whatever that feels like, because this is a team that's much better than the results. But when was that going to change? Because you felt like it was when and not if. But the longer it went on, it started to feel maybe a little bit like an if in the minds of some for sure. Let's begin by discussing one of the biggest Braves bats that we've seen in the lineup year in and year out, and somebody that we've been waiting for to turn things around, and that is Austin Riley. The Atlanta third baseman was mired in a slump since coming back from that side injury that had him on the bench for a couple of weeks, sitting on just 3 home runs through 53 games. Riley homered in all 3 against the Tampa Bay Rays last weekend, and then he proceeded to go 10 for 19 with 7 extra base hits on the homestand. Some very, very good work from Austin Riley. For perspective, Riley had 7 extra base hits, the same number that he just had on the homestand, in the previous 40 games. So it's good to see him get some things turned around. And Chris, of all the guys who are currently healthy and available and could make an impact on Atlanta's season, Riley has to be at the top of that list of guys that just had to get it going.
Yeah, he's one of the most important bats in the lineup. He's the guy that you just kind of hang 30 homers, 100 RBIs, and you expect that from him every season. And it's just for whatever reason it's not been there. And the slugging percentage was what was the really eye popping. He was getting some hits here and there, but most of them were singles.
Yeah.
So to see him start to drive the ball on this past homestand, it's a really good sign for the Braves. Hopefully we know how hot he can get. He can go, and he showed that plenty of times in the past. So, he's capable of carrying this offense if they need it, if they can get him going. So, really good things to see. I'm like you. It was one of those, it felt like a matter of when more than if. And, we finally saw the Austin Riley we were expecting to see.
Yeah, and we want to see a lot more of that, obviously. And so does Riley, who's been working to get himself out of this slump and obviously playing with a heavy heart here recently with the passing of Mike Brumley. But, as he has tried to find those answers and figure it out, you did have to feel like he was going to get back to those lofty career norms that he's had since breaking out in 2021. This is a guy you expect big things from. Now, I threw the healthy caveat out there in saying somebody you needed to get going because, unfortunately, for the Braves and injuries, this is a tale that we've heard too many times this year. And we have to lead off with a man that was leading off for Atlanta after the loss of Ronald Acuna Jr. 3 weeks ago. Not only are the Braves now without the NL MVP, they were without Michael Harris II, who is going on the shelf for a number of weeks thanks to a grade 2 hamstring strain that he suffered in the very first inning of the first game of the homestand. Atlanta has not put a timetable on a return date for Harris. We can reasonably speculate, though, I think, Chris, that a second half return is likely. It could definitely impact the trade deadline plans for the Braves if they didn't already have outfielder on their shopping list. They probably do now, and it's an outfield need that was only heightened by the reminder that adding quality depth in case there's another injury setback, because those things are impossible to predict. This may sound familiar because Alex Anthopoulos has been down this road before. He did it in 2021 with a series of trades that many regard as his finest work as the Braves GM.
Yeah, disappointing to see Michael Harris go down just because he was starting to swing the bat better. He was another Brave that had just struggled at the plate more so than we were used to. The defense in center field speaks for itself. He's a hard guy to replace. Jerry Kelenic's done a pretty good job early on, but that's a guy that you probably can't completely replace. As far as this roster goes. So really disappointing. I think that does heighten the necessity for the Braves to go out and probably get at least one outfielder. I think they're pretty comfortable with Kelenic in center field, and then of course Forrest Wall could play there if you needed him to. But I definitely think that you need to add somebody in the corners now, or at least one corner spot. So, but man, just what a crazy turn of events as far as injuries have gone this season. I mean, it's been it was kind of the story in 2023. They just slugged their way past it, but this year it's been like every time you've started to build a little momentum, you get a setback like this.
Yeah, this happened far too many times. They've had a setback on the pitching side of gigantic proportions in Spencer Strider being lost after two starts. You lose the National League MVP 2 months into the season, and then you have your talented center fielder, hit the IL for at least a number of weeks. And we don't know how long that's going to be, but all of that does not help the Braves, who are trying to, figure out a way to start slugging again, but have been really pitching their way through their problems this year, which is an interesting turn of events that I did not have in my preseason predictions. Now, with Harris down at the top of the order, the next man up is Jared Kelenic, as you mentioned. I know we've talked a lot about the opportunity for Kelenic to move up in the order in some way, shape, or form. He's batting 284 and slugging 511 over his past 25 games. We're starting to see the lefty swinger power it up as well. Chris, this is the kind of production Atlanta was hoping for when acquiring Kelenic in that offseason trade with Seattle, and now he becomes a bit of a featured bat for the Braves.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, the plan coming in was to hit him eighth or ninth and not put too much pressure on him. But with every injury that's happened, he's become that much more important as far as this goes. So, credit to him. I know he's worked really hard. The results weren't there early in the season, but you can say that for a lot of the roster. Everyone not named Marcell Ozuna just about. So, but it's good to see the work starting to pay off for him a little bit. I like him in the leadoff spot. Of course, that was the difficult thing about the Braves. The Braves really didn't have a good leadoff option once Acuna went down. So it's good to see him get up there and kind of take hold of the spot.
But I'll throw this out there as well. I mean, how many teams have a good option at leadoff when their primary leadoff guy, especially, I mean, you're not replacing the National League's MVP, but just putting that part aside for a moment, it's hard to replace the guy that is supposed to be setting the tone for your lineup. I don't care who you are. Another big bat that needed to have a big day at the plate was Shawn Murphy. Keep in mind, he missed 2 months of the season and was not part of the plan at all, which has negatively affected his ability to get things going. Murphy, though, 4 for 4, a pair of two-run homers as the Braves swept away the Tigers with their 7-0 win on Wednesday. There's no question the power's there, but I think at this point, Murphy was most ready to see some results and finally reach a breakthrough like this because he's had a very start and then stop season, and he hasn't been able to really find a consistency that he'd like to in the couple of weeks since returning.
Yeah, it was good to see him get some results finally too. Because I mean, we saw him hit some some balls with high exit velocities that went for outs. He maybe Sunday's game will just give him the opportunity to exhale a little bit and relax and start to settle in. I mean, it's the same thing you and I've been saying for 3 weeks about this lineup, various players, up and down. But Murphy, I think people forget just how important an offensive threat he could be for this lineup. And along with Austin Riley and Marcell Ozuna.
Now, let's get to a few arms that are also doing some big things for the Braves. Spencer Schwellenbach earned his first major league win with 6 innings of one-run ball against the Tigers his last time out. He continued to show the ability to locate all of his pitches, make those necessary adjustments, and navigate a big league lineup with a tip of the cap, obviously, to the Shawn Murphys and Travis d'Arnaud's, who are helping him out at this level as well. But I think the Braves have to be pretty excited about what they've seen from Schwellenbach, and he's pitching his way, it looks like, into their plans, at least in the short term for right now. This is a kid that's making a pretty big impression.
Yeah, I've been impressed with him. I mean, I think the thing that's jumped out to me is the way he pounds the strike zone. He's not going out there and walking 4 or 5 guys and getting himself in a tough pitch count. He's been around 5 or 6 innings every start he's been out there. Yeah, you'd like to see him miss a few more bats, but I think that's going to come. I mean, I've been impressed with the stuff. He's shown 96, 97 with the fastball at times. And I just think he's young guy. He's going to go through some struggles. But I think this experience for him is going to be really valuable. And, to me, he looks like the best option for that fifth starter spot.
Now, the Braves also were employing a sixth starter and might still a bit as the season wears on because of the benefit of getting added rest for both Reynaldo Lopez and Chris Sale, as we've talked about. Hurston Waldrop, though, kind of pitched his way out of those plans rather quickly. In two big league starts, the 2023 first rounder was knocked around. He's going to be optioned back to AAA, but then complained about some elbow pain. That landed him on the 15-day IL, though it doesn't seem to be anything major at this point. It's still not anything that you ever want to hear. That news aside, the Braves wanted to add another reliever to the mix, and they did that with longtime minor leaguer Grant Holmes, former first-round pick by the Dodgers back in 2014. I don't want to send you back to dark days, but the Braves in that first round were busy drafting Braxton Davidson. I don't think that one worked out. Holmes, meanwhile, spent a decade in the minors before debuting in the big leagues for the Braves and firing 3 scoreless innings on Sunday. Chris, I love these stories of perseverance, and Holmes is most certainly that.
And it seems like the Braves are always good for one of these types of stories, especially with a reliever, a guy that you're not counting on, suddenly comes up with the roster and becomes a contributor. I mean, his stuff is nasty, and that's the thing that jumped out at me. He was starting at Gwinnett. Looks like the Braves he may settle into that Jackson Stevens type of role that we've seen, the Braves employ over the last few seasons. So, kudos to him for hanging in there. I really enjoyed hearing about how he persevered, and he said he never even entertained the idea of giving up. And I mean, that's a great example for people not just in baseball but anywhere really.
Yeah, and it seemed like he had a great support system around him as well with that family. We heard a lot from them on the television broadcast on Sunday, and everybody had to just absolutely feel like they were living the dream alongside him. So congratulations to Grant Holmes, and we'll see how he factors into the Braves bullpen plans. The first impression, though, to use that word again, or that phrase again, was quite nice. Now, here's a somewhat rhetorical question for you. Do we talk about Jesse Chavez enough? On this show, probably not, but it's giving us plenty of reasons to change that lately with the work that Chavez has been doing. He's the oldest reliever in Major League Baseball, currently owns, though, the second best ERA of any relief pitcher in MLB over the past 2 seasons combined, with a minimum of at least 50 innings pitched. You may have seen me post that on social media. I still think it's incredible that Jesse Chavez is up on that list, considering some of the big arms and relievers that you might be expecting to perhaps perform a little bit better than the 40-year-old who really relies on pinpoint execution. But Chavez has been executing quite well this year. He owns a 121 ERA in 29 and 2/3 innings. That's second most by any Atlanta reliever this year as far as innings goes. And he's doing all of this at 40, which is nothing short of impressive. But flashback to this time a year ago, Chris, when he was struck by that liner, which cost him almost 3 months on the injured list before he came back late in the season. There were rumblings about a Jesse Chavez all-star appearance. And Chris, if he deserved it a year ago, I think that Chavez should at least be a discussion point again this year. And Brian Snitker is among those who agree.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about Jesse Chavez? I mean, you cannot not pull for that guy. The way his careers has gone. He just keeps finding his way back to Atlanta. And once he gets to Atlanta, he finds a lot of success. And, and he's proven that. I'd love to see him in the All-Star game. I'm not 100% sure that it's going to happen, but I think it may take a couple of rounds of injury replacements. But I mean, if you're going as straight up middle relief, I think he's deserving. I mean, he's put up the numbers. He means a ton to this Braves team, and Brian Snitker in particular, because you'll see him come in, throw two and thirds innings, or come in the eighth in a high leverage spot, and he just does the job. So, hats off to him. I'd love to see him in Texas in the All-Star game. We'll just have to see if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, again, it could be a long shot, whatever you want to call it, but the fact that a 40-year-old pitcher who does not rely on high velocity is out there having the kind of success, and like you said, being used in virtually any situation the Braves ask of him and being able to get the job done, that definitely means something, certainly for the Braves, and we'll see if he gets the bigger attention that we're talking about here. But let's talk a little bit about this road trip, particularly about this weekend. Chris, the Yankees are a top 3 team in Major League Baseball in home runs, runs scored, and ERA. That's usually a pretty good combination for success, and you can tell because this is a team battling with the Baltimore Orioles at the top of the American League East, and we've already seen Baltimore this year. We know that's a pretty good team as well. If there's one thing that's good news for Atlanta, the Yankees won't throw Garrett Cole or Luis Gil at them in this series. The bad news, however, is that the rest of their rotation, those starters ain't bad either. New York has put everything together this year with a slugging lineup, a tremendous pitching staff, and the Yankees have become one of the best teams in baseball again, which not too long ago, you had to kind of wonder if there was a plan in New York and maybe how much longer Brian Cashman's leash was after a very long and successful run at the helm there.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun series, intriguing series. Braves have a little bit of momentum, and you and I talked. I think it was last episode we talked about. It didn't really matter about the standings anymore. It was more about the Braves taking care of themselves. And this weekend's a perfect opportunity. I mean, Braves are a little bit undermanned right now with all the injuries, but if you could find a way to go into Yankee Stadium and come out with a series win this weekend, that just propels you even further with momentum. I mean, and the NL East leads down to 7 games. I mean, some people, we know how quick that can change. It can be put back to 10 quickly with the way the Phillies have played at times. But at the same time, this is an opportunity. You can keep the pressure on them against one of the best teams in the majors right now.
Yeah, and you'd like to keep the momentum of the homestand going as well. The pitching matchups will see the Braves throw 3 veterans at the Yankees in this series. It's Chris Sale against Carlos Rodon in Game 1, Charlie Morton against Marcus Stroman in Game 2, and then Max Fried will face Nestor Cortez in the finale on Sunday. Should be an interesting weekend on a lot of different fronts. Maybe the Braves offense could also enjoy the friendly dimensions at Yankee Stadium on this trip, dare I say.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great because you got to feel like the Yankees are going to score runs this weekend. I mean, Braves pitching staff's been excellent, but this is a powerful lineup, and the Braves are going to have to hit. That's just all. That's just the way what it's going to come down to. So, should be a really fun series. Looking forward to watching some games at Yankee Stadium.
It should be intriguing, to say the least, not to use that word too many times. But this is a 3-city road trip that will see the Braves play 7 games. They've got the 3 against the Yankees, 3 more against the Cardinals, and then 1 to make up against the Chicago White Sox from earlier this season. That is what's ahead for the Braves this week. And that brings us to the end of another episode of BPTV. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Battery Power YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications. You'll get an alert every time we drop a new episode. Thank you, as always, for riding along with us. Make sure you share the show with a friend. Help us grow the channel, and we will catch you next time. For Chris Willis, I'm Grant McCauley. Until then, so long, Braves Country.